today to review some of the recent scandals associated with the Republican Party. And some folks would like to say that it's the entire Republican Party that's at fault, but of course it's really just a smaller faction of the party that's been involved in most of this. And many Republicans, we know, are opposed to that faction of the party as well. That's the faction that was run by the late Steve Minerick, and it still seems to have a lot of influence and power in county government. So let's sort of just go over and to remind you and review some of the things that have happened over the past few years. Of course, the first and most prominent issue is Robitrad, the scandal involving county workers who were doing private business, fixing houses for people like Supervisor Esposito, a number of people in Gates, and other people throughout the county. Another prominent one was an ex-member of the board in Greece. So there's been a number of issues involved with Robitrad, and we've seen a number of plea bargains. Just recently, a plea bargain's been offered to the head of the program, Robert Marone. That's certainly a black mark on our county government when public funds are being used essentially to fix private houses, and public funds and leaders are basically being used to conduct political operations through the county government. Don't forget the MCC president scandal. That was certainly an interesting event. The board of trustees of MCC, mostly consisting of Republicans appointed by the aforementioned folks in government, tried to ram through their own candidate, overriding the wishes of the people at MCC to have an outside candidate who seems to be well qualified. Well, what they did was they brought in a couple of their own candidates at the last minute and tried to ram them through. Of course, public outrage ensued, and they had to sort of back off. And now they've got a new president, hopefully one who's chosen for academic credentials and not for connections to the board. But MCC still remains kind of a hotbed of cronyism for the county. There seem to be quite a lot of connections with contractors, development projects, where county favorites get jobs at MCC doing construction and the like. So it still remains kind of a hotbed of patronage and cronyism. This was also true with the MCC dorm construction. Again, another example of very overt cronyism. Then there were a series of scandals involving the water company. You want to just stop the water? I'll start that one over again. There were a number of scandals involving the water authority, which again is another hotbed of cronyism. It seems to be populated primarily by old Republicans who have been put out to pasture. Robert Stanwyck, the ex-director of the Water Authority, was recently there was recently issues where his pension and his benefits were scrutinized. And again, it seems to be a place where people get paid off and get a cushy pension at the last minute. Don't forget the fair tax, another fine example of a county government that's willing to override any public will or any public consideration. Fair tax was, of course, sprung upon the county legislature at the last minute. I think they had maybe, 2 or 3 hours, the Democrats, to deliberate this process. And then it was passed, of course, because the county legislature has the majority. Another obvious example of how the current leaders of our county government are quite willing to ignore any democratic processes of discussion or deliberation and simply bring something up at the last minute, keep it from the public, and run it through. Now that obviously was overturned by the courts, but I think it would have been an unmitigated disaster for our school districts, especially considering the fiscal crisis that has ensued in the last year or so with the collapse of the banking industry and the financial situation that we're in. Now, I think at the same time there was an interesting incident where Maggie stood in front of a school in Webster and railed on about the inadequacies of this school, when in fact it was found out that the problem with the school wasn't a problem at all. It was that the school had a lot of special needs students, so naturally the rankings on state lists would be a little bit lower. But the main point of the fair tax issue is that the school districts were essentially cut adrift by Maggie Brooks, essentially given a mandate to say, really, she said, the schools don't matter. The school funding is rather secondary. Schools get too much anyway, so why should they care? So essentially, she's willing to cut loose any specific group, like the schools, and throw them under the bus if it suits her purposes. Again, that would have been an unmitigated disaster for our schools.